Hey, you're listening to Tech Talks with Lou, and I'm Lou Temlett. I hope you're having a good day, and I'm really thankful for you listening. So, this is Tech Talks with Lou, the show in which I discuss the top tech secrets for success from the best in today's digital world. Last time, I spoke with Joyce Durst, CEO and founder of wearegap.com. We spoke about authenticity and confidence in being a female in the tech industry. If you haven't already listened, head back after this episode and let me know what you think. My guest today is a comedian, has experience in stage management, business coaching, and she has just worked on an award-winning steam installation on the southwest coast of England. I'd like to welcome Becky Walsh to my podcast. Hi, Becky, how are you?
Hello, yes, I'm really good, thank you. It's all very official. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
I was brought up well as a child.
Oh, it is very good to be speaking with you. I know we've made connections from Clubhouse and various other kind of social connections over the last year or so. So I really am grateful to speak to you. And what drew me to you was your kind of comedian humour, yet your business coaching and kind of common sense, but with a sense of fun. So listeners, be prepared. This is going to be an absolute rollercoaster of an episode. I'm counting on you, Becky.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm strapped in. I've got my braces on. I'm clinging on. Gritted teeth, tight jaw.
Wonderful. So this is Tech Talks with Lou, and me and the kids recently visited Weston-super-Mare to see your art installation or the steam installation down on the coast, which was, for those who haven't visited, was an absolutely massive oil rig put onto land and with loads of amazing layers and things. But we'll start here, Becky. So yeah. I'd like you to tell me more on how you got involved in this project.
It was bonkers. So the thing was called Sea Monster, and it was part of an Unboxed festival. So it was about trying to really get young people interested in STEM. But we added an A and called it STEAM because obviously it's an art installation. And it really was about putting together technology, engineering with the arts. And so it had the most incredible lighting. And so at night, it just looked absolutely stunning. So when you're kind of thinking, you know, an oil rig, I mean, it was that. And how I got involved was two lovely lads from a company called Dose of Society came to come and see. I work for also part-time for a local council, and they wanted to interview people in Weston-super-Mare who they thought were influencers, key people around the town. So I gave them a list of people, and they said, "Could we interview you?"
Gave them a list of people.
I gave them a list of people, and the thing was, I've reached an age where you look at young people and you go, "Oh, students." You don't actually think that they've got their own business. Like policemen, oh, he's only just out of a hoodie. So I got ranty about the psychology of Weston-super-Mare and why it was an incredible place to live and how awful it is that it's bashed with Weston-super mud and old perceptions. Yep. And so they took away this to a company called New Substance and said, "We're done. We found the place," because they were given like a brief of 11 different places to go to, all on the coast, and went, we're done. It's the first place we went to. It's Weston-super-Mare. We're done. It's happening here. And they were like, go and do your research. At the end of the research, they went, "It's Weston-super-Mare." And it's partly because Weston's got this incredible placemaking strategy of really reinventing itself. And the reinvention of Sea Monster. So Sea Monster was about reimagining, things that we no longer are looking at using or we don't look at favourably. Although without any disrespect to the gas and oil industry, it was to bring something like that and kind of go, well, how can we reimagine it? And how can we inspire kids into STEAM-based subjects as they move forward in future? So the different layers, as you've described, of Sea Monster, we had like a garden lab, which was just, we had, I think it was over 2,000 different plants and trees on Sea Monster, craned in. We had to get Sea Monster on a crane and over a wall. It also had to come from, so it had to come off the North Sea, be cleaned, then be moved here from another place in Europe, travelled up the beach at a particular tide as well, and then it needed two cranes.
You mean there is a tide
there
at
is a tide.
Western-super-Mare, is
We
there?
have got the second fastest tide I think you'll find in the world, yes. And don't ask me what the first fastest tide is, because I actually don't know. And so we needed a crane to build the crane, to put the crane, to bring the thing over the wall. And then we had a garden lab, and we had like a technology lab that created its own clouds. We were broadcasting as well, because it was all created around the weather as well. So we were broadcasting the shipping forecast, and we had a helicopter pad which created an amphitheatre. It was stunning, and it had scales and all sorts of things. And really, if you haven't seen what we're talking about here, please, please, please look up the documentary film that is currently online, because it really does have to be seen to be believed. It was an incredible project to have worked on.
It was. Now, just to clarify, I know we're not talking acronyms, but when you mention Sea Monster, people might think SEA. However, it's SEE. So Sea Monster.
And didn't we all think we were really clever with that title? Look, Sea Monster. How clever are we? Sea and sea. It was a nightmare, actually.
But what I will say is that your use of S, E, and E in your branding, in your logo kind of icon was epic. We've got stickers plastered around the walls still. So it was a very iconic thing. So maybe we can talk about brand as well, because that I was impacted in a wonderful way, as well as seeing this thing. And we did stay there all day to see the Sea Monster at night. And if any of you follow on my socials, I'm sure I've got some postings somewhere along the line, because it was epic. It was absolutely epic. So give me some facts about this Sea Monster, because I remember my children having to have a quiz, Becky, and I'm not sure whether you were involved with the quiz or remember any of the questions.
Probably not. But I mean, when you mentioned branding then, I think that everything was very visual. So New Substance, who they also have the drone shows as well. So we put on a drone show around Sea Monster as well. And they did, so if you remember the Queen's Jubilee, they did the drones for that. And they do the drones for the what would be fireworks, for New Year's and things like that in London. So they're a very, very visual company. And actually, some of this was actually for me personally, quite hard to navigate, because my role within the project was about community engagement. So it was about getting the community involved, not so that this wasn't something that was to happen to Western-super-Mare. It was to happen with Western-super-Mare. So that was really vital and important. And so we created think tanks, and I went to what you would call influencers in Western, but people who were the key players. So we have the Stables, who are really a tech organisation for startups. You can come and hot desk there. There's lots of different things that kind of go on. So we looked at them being part of the STEM think tank. Then we had an environmental think tank, an arts think tank. So we just kind of split it off so that we had members who were part of different organisations that were looking after the ideas that were coming from the community, of not just what we wanted to put on Sea Monster on that incredible helipad, but also what we wanted to put on in the town, so that we were generating footfall going from Sea Monster to the town as part of supporting the local businesses. Yeah. And I personally got very frustrated. So I'd kind of like, I want to write this, and everything had to be checked, and branding had to be checked. And I'd never come across this before to this extent, because this was a government project. And so when you're working with something within government, you everything is kind of like, we've really got to keep it messaging clear, imagery clear. And I'm a panto set painter. Slap the paint on and it'll look all right. And if it drips on the floor, we'll just cover it up. It'll be fine. So I'm a, ex-stage manager. You just stick it together with gaffer tape and it'll do. And you put it on the road. With this, the attention to detail, especially around accessibility, was second to none. So absolutely everything, which made me feel like my hands and legs were tied constantly, but absolutely everything was done to a level of perfection that I can't own.
Yes.
Can't own that. That's not me.
It was appreciated, very much appreciated.
By other people who know how to do things perfectly.
The brand, the quality, the accessibility, certainly, that was very obvious from being a branding kind of tech expert and creative, coming into that space as well, and feeling like actually everything had a place and knew where it was supposed to be, which was nice. But yes, coming back to you said about 2,000 plants. I think part of the children's quiz were how many trees were there. There were actually 63. I will have to verify this with my son. And the tallest tree, I think it was either 6 or 9 foot.
Yeah, and it was a maple.
Right at the very top.
Yeah, and they're all in Weston now, so they were all gifted to the
fantastic.
town. So 4 of them are in Clarence Park, and then we've made kind of like a legacy garden, which is down from anyone who doesn't know where I'm talking about. I don't really need to explain this, do I know? But it's up from the golf course and down from beach lawns if you happen to want to come and visit. Yeah, so it's great.
Fantastic. So go and check out. I'm sure the website's still accessible.
The website's still up, but everything else is down. So the education pages are also still there. So if you've got kids and you want to get them involved, then all of that is there. All the films that we made, everything is there. But all of the social media stuff has all been taken down. But that is still there.
Fabulous. I was a keen participant and visitor many times. So as it was free, I queued up the first day and I was thinking I was going to at least have to pay £20 to get in. And it was like, okay, you can just count the number of people, see how many people are coming through. But it was fantastic. And it was a really lovely community thing. Although I did avoid the slide that went from the very top level down to the next level. There were a lot of people that were coming down, not children, that were very scared.
Because it was fast. I mean, this was not like a when we kind of went in before it opened, and we were all queuing up as well. So it was kind of open to sort of like VIPs, like counsellors and local people, and we were all kind of like queuing up for the slide. But what was great was seeing grown adults that you work with who are counsellors or people who are kind of like very well to do, giggling like a small child as they went down the slide and up, around and down, and they'd come off and just put their hands in their hands and just giggle. And it was just beautiful to see that. So I went down the slide quite a lot. But it was, I mean, and that actually, the idea for the slide came from community engagement because somebody said, why don't you have a zip wire? And we were like, I don't think we can do a zip wire. Like, zip wire onto the beach? I'm not sure about that. And then we were, but we could have a slide. And I don't think that the slide was on the original plan until we started the think tank meetings. I might be wrong, but I don't think it was there. And they went, actually, a slide would be good. And it was brilliant. So fun.
Yes, it did. Yes, it was quite steep. You're listening to Tech Talks with Lou, and I'm Lou Temlett. And today I'm talking with Becky Walsh, comedian and author. So, Becky, as I've just introduced you there, you are a comedian and an author. So I'd love to hear more about your journey and experience as a comedian.
So I'm going to have to say it. I shared a flat many years ago with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, and we were living in Cricklewood at the time. And I won't go too much into that story, but I remember being extremely jealous. Simon was saying one night, I actually was taking the mickey, and I said, have you actually moved from that sofa? Because I went out to work, came home, and he was still sitting in exactly the same place. I said, you've actually moved from that sofa? And he went, no. And he said, let me just ask you, how much have you earned this week? And at the time I was on a buyout contract and it was on £350 for the week. So, £350. And he goes, how many hours was that? I went, don't even ask. He went, I did a 20-minute gig last night. Did you? Yeah. 200 quid. I'm like, oh. So I think, first of all, I was attracted to the lifestyle, but then realised that actually, it's actually really hard. And I was terrible. And I just was suckage personified every time I tried to do it, because I tried to create funny, and you kind of can't. You kind of can't script funny. It just doesn't work like that. So when I got into personal development, I started to realise that actually comedy was a really great way of getting across personal development subjects that are dry, sticky, awkward. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when I've watched a TED Talk, I walk away feeling less than a human being. I don't walk away feeling inspired. I walk away feeling a little bit more rubbish than I did before. Whereas when you go and see personal development subjects done in a comedy way, at least you had a laugh, So I started doing little different ones, but the one that I've landed on at the moment is called Burnout. And I think I'm onto something, because I think that
Ooh,
most of us are feeling a little bit burnt out. So I wrote the branding and the copy and everything for Burnout, and put it out into the world, and the show sold out within 48 hours. I was like, whoa, hang on, that's amazing.
fantastic.
Yeah, amazing. And then the next show sold out, little bit longer, but I was putting on the same show in the same town. But it was the word of mouth from the first show that sold out the second show.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that's great. That's what you want, because then you can kind of only live so long in a concept, only live so long in a reputation. What you want is the word of mouth. You want people going, I want to see the show, and it's absolutely brilliant. And now that seems to be what's happening, much to my own surprise. So I'm always surprised. So I'm talking about how burnout comes about, how to stop it, what to do when you're in it, how to know that you're in it, but also at the same time making people laugh about being busy, really. So so that's really good. And my next show, which I've started writing, is called Toss Bag: How to Deal with Challenging People. So, and who doesn't need to see that?
So is your Burnout show complete, done? Is that finished, or are you still touring?
It's an improv-y thing. So I'm still touring, and I'm pondering with taking it to Edinburgh. I've got some gigs that are going to be coming up in Bristol. And so really I'm starting to I haven't really done kind of like a tour. I think you need to be a lot bigger before you start being taken to random venues when no one's heard of you. Yeah. But the more it builds and the more impact it starts to have, then eventually that will start to happen. And a lot of it is just bouncing off the audience and improvising with the audience, because that's the fun bit. I think if you go with a very clear script, apart from if you forget the script, you become massively undone, but then there's no audience engagement. So it's really about the audience, and it's about answering what's going on in the audience's lives. Yes. And so one of the books I've written is about intuition, and I think that intuition as a comedian is vital for being able to read your audience and who you're doing. I am dreading an audience of people who are massively younger than me, like younger than millennials. I'm dreading that, because I don't think that they're going to get a lot of what I'm saying, because I think you really have to have lived to really understand the content. But we'll see if that ends up happening. If I end up doing some kind of university gig, I might avoid that. But,
I love it. I think it's incredibly important to kind of bring humor into business. There's lots of things where actually it can soften life a great deal, and equally bringing in the intuition side of things. So Becky is a very experienced business coach, and bringing all of those elements together, you are in for quite a smooth ride.
Exactly that.
We've done the rough ride at the beginning, and this is the smooth bit. So you mentioned before we started recording that you've been doing comedy for about 10 years. How soon after your jealousy moment at Simon Pegg earning £200 for 20 minutes work?
He probably wouldn't even get a bed for that now.
So how long did it take you to convert that I want some of that to I'm having some of that?
Well, I had to be rubbish for ages first. So one of my jobs was working on cruise ships when I worked in theatre as a stage manager on cruise ships and lighting technician. And used to have cruise shows. And so I did a couple of cruise shows, and I just died. I mean, apart from the fact that audiences just talk through you, so you can't get them to shut up, which is like really difficult. And then when I came back, I was working for the makers of the James Bond films, so Eon, and we were doing a musical, and we did like a cruise show, not cruise show, but we did kind of like a fundraising event. And so one of the actors that was working on the show did some directing with me and helped support me to create a script. And again, I really sucked. I mean, we had some big celebrities in the audience as well, and it was like an incredible, wonderfully dying on my bottom moment. And I think what I learned was that you try and create a persona of being a comedian, and they will kill you. They will just kill you. You cannot create a persona of a comedian. You cannot create an archetype. You can't pretend to be a comedian. And I actually think that stands for most things in life. Is I do believe in act as if, but don't try and pretend that you're something you're not. So you can act as if and amplify a part of yourself, but don't try and pretend that you're something that you can't find within yourself. And that's what I was doing. And it was really at a point where I kind of went, well, what do I actually know? Because most comedians talk about things that they know. So they may talk about, and for British comedians, that kind of like comes from that self-deprecation. But you will talk about something that you know. And what I know the most about is human beings, is personal development, is the things that make us tick, is human psychology. So the minute I realised actually that's really what I need to be doing it about, instead of actually, because there's the easy element of kind of like going on and talking about, periods and stuff that is awkward funny. You get awkward laugh and you think, oh yeah, this is working. Yeah, it's not. So I think if you can find something that is niche, that is perfect for you, then the comedy kind of does itself. And I've been doing it for years with being a trainer, with working as a business coach, with making people laugh in sessions, that it was just an easy flip. If you can be on stage and you're comfortable on stage, then comedy is actually quite easy, as long as you know what it is that you can be funny about. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. And I think, it's quite obvious, like having lived with Simon, the things that he was funny about was everything he was into, which is films. He was really into films. He was really into popular, and everyone had, so his audiences were wide, because if you love films, you're going to love what Simon's comedy is about. So if you love this, you're going to love that. And I think that when you look at the way that theatre is, it's like, if you love shows by Queen, then you're going to like this musical about the Queen songs, or you're going to like the Elton John, you're going to like. And so this is why, if you're a comedian, you really need to kind of like grip onto something that is culturally connecting people. And Burnout is culturally connecting people, especially off the back of COVID. So that's why I feel like I'm finally onto something. My subjects have just been off for 10 years.
Yes. No, it does feel, when you said kind of burnout, for me, I was like echoing your words then, on the back of COVID, because whilst it was kind of medium busy, now life is even more busy, and we are kind of embodying and kind of working in our home life spaces, and there's nowhere to get away.
And our responsibilities have increased. So I think that, I kind of like measure it out in terms of, if you've got pets, aging parents, children, business, whatever it is taking a chunk of your energy and going, and it's gone. And so what you might do is you might kind of like go, right, I've got, and especially as you get kind of older, you become more conscious of your energy, and you go, right, I have this block of energy to cover this much stuff. And then all it takes is a phone call from the school. Can you come and pick up your daughter? She's done, whatever. And then suddenly, the amount of things that you are responsible for depletes your energy. And then you go, oh, I've got to write a blog post for my business. Good luck with that, because you literally are trying to wring out. And that's when we start taking the energy, next week's energy, tomorrow's energy, next month's energy. And then before you know it, you have just borrowed so much of your future energy that you will burn out. But we don't realize that we're borrowing our future energy. And, I don't know if you've ever had this. I call it the living room moment, where you stand in the living room and go, I ain't got a Scooby-Doo what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know. And it's like you've literally just, like, your brain has just gone, we're done. We've reached the living room, we're done. And I have found at moments, even if I'm watching a television show, I go, I actually have to turn this off. I don't have capacity for it. I don't have capacity to Netflix. Like, that's mad. That's completely mad.
Shocking.
Yeah, I know. Can't even sit and watch TV. I can sit and go, but that's not a good look. I have those old star fillings, not the new ones. That's not a good look.
So what I'd like to know is to try and to wrap all of this, your experience, into my tech podcast, maybe very tenuously. And what I like to do is ask my guests how they would help inform, educate someone that was interested in comedy, being in kind of a comedian, or working as a kind of business coach. What tips, what advice might you offer them? Certainly maybe the younger than millennials even.
I think It would be the same advice for absolutely everything. Be playful. The more playful you can be in life, and the less seriously you take life, anyone else's opinion, or yourself, then the more you can actually create. Because the minute you start to think, I need to reach a destination or have a goal in mind, or even a lifestyle dream, you are diluting the capacity of yourself in the moment. And I think it's very easy to kind of like think, because we all are purpose driven. We want to have a calling. We want to believe I am meant to do this. There is some higher power that is conforming into this. This is what I'm meant to do with my time. And I'm going to do this and have a goal. And the minute you start to kind of fixate on a future place, you can't, you're losing your energy, and you're not present in the moment. You're not present with what is. And then it can't be funny because you're putting too much pressure on the audience. And that's exactly the same with coaching or anything else. The minute you ask anything of anyone else, that you ask the audience to find you funny, that you ask clients to book an appointment with you, you are needy. And we hate needy. We just can't stand needy. But the minute we are in of service, which is, it doesn't matter if you find me funny, I'm just here to be funny. It doesn't matter if you want to book an appointment with me, I'm just here to share content. So the minute you're in a sharing mode, that it's about somebody else and it isn't about you. So therefore it can't be about your destination, it can't be about your career path. It literally has to be about the joy of it. If you can achieve that, you are just gold. You are just gold. And it's really hard to do because society tells you not to do that, to actually have a path, have a career, have a vision, and it's the killer of creativity.
Yes, I agree. When you first started speaking in this kind of segment, all I could think about, Becky, was getting, my art screen pen and drawing moustaches on us. Anyway, that's for another time.
It's like those rabbit ears and things like that. So I was watching a Simon Sinek broadcast that he did quite recently. I'm quite into Simon Sinek, and I do fancy him. Just in case that needs putting out there, he may watch.
You know what?
This.
He's single at the moment.
I know. That's why I'm putting it out there, just in case. I mean, you never know. I know no future goals, but I just want that right now.
Tag him in the content. It's fine.
And just
okay. Let's not make this serious, but make it poignant and shareable.
Hi, Simon. So one of the things he said was apparently on his, I think it was one of them anyway, I think it was TikTok, that accidentally some kind of like rabbit ears and funny face had been stuck on. And so he's looking at all of these screens and then he just keeps looking at himself. And I just thought, you know what? I actually think you should do that anyway, just so that you don't take yourself too seriously whilst you're broadcasting incredible content. I mean, his content is usually incredible. But, just actually have rabbit ears on yourself while you're being very earnest.
Exactly. I was on that stream.
Going on.
I was listening to that stream, and I was listening on Instagram Live, and I think you had LinkedIn and Facebook and all the rest of them, but it was on one of them. Yeah, but I was there. I was with you.
And you were there. We were there at the same time. But yeah, it was just really well done. But yeah, the minute you said he was singing, I was like, but apparently though, I probably he's got like 3 relationship points that he needs to hit when he meets somebody.
Yeah, do you remember what they are?
I actually have them written down if you want me to know. I've written them down.
Go on, share them. Go on.
Please, this is not obsession. Okay, so sexually kind of like connected. That one, emotionally available, and intellectually stimulating. Sweetie, I'm all of them. However, there is one that he has a plus, which is very disappointing. And his plus is basically we need to be in the same country. I can move.
Yeah, but he's spending a lot of time in the UK, isn't he?
Well, he's doing a live thing. I've got tickets. He's doing a live thing. I'm going.
You got tickets?
Yeah, I'm not running down in my bra down to the front. It's not happening. I'm sorry I didn't get you a ticket. We could have done that. But yeah, I'm not going to be standing at stage door with a copy of my book with "I love you" written in it either. So we'll, I'm just going to be a nobody at the back of the auditorium. Can you imagine? Because I'd have to get in a queue behind a load of other desperate women who are thinking the same thing, no doubt. Oh well.
Yes, I think he's put his intention to the universe, and I think the universe will certainly respond.
I think so, in an abundance. So I'm putting my intention into the universe. There it is.
You're listening to Tech Talks with Lou, and I'm Lou Temlett. And today I'm talking with Becky Walsh, comedian and author. So, Becky, tell me a bit more about your book, because you've mentioned it in the previous kind of section. And I like linking all these things together because it feels very poignant, kind of, sliding swiftly on from potentially getting a date with Simon Sinek. Of course.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, of course. So we've got so much in common. I've written a book. This was something that when I worked in theatre, people used to say, you are really spooky. You end up at, in the dressing room or somewhere near at exactly the time that an actor was having a bit of a meltdown. And I became very curious about why some people are really highly intuitive, and other people just kind of aren't so much. And it was something that really was a bugbear, and I really wanted to know about it. So at the time, I was living in London. I was a radio presenter, had lots of different things going on, and I decided to up sticks and move to America. So picked up the dog, took the dog, and moved to the States, moved to San Francisco and started studying everything I could about neuroscience and how the brain worked. And what came up was the fact that people who have a very intense level of intuition, which people at the time were calling psychic, actually it's a form of neurodiversity. And so,
I was trying to avoid that label.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. That's neurodiversity. Well, I think the thing is, I think that people kind of like go, oh, well, if you're really brilliant at remembering numbers and names and dates, and then this is a superpower that kind of like comes from people who are on the autistic spectrum. But actually someone who's intuitive, now you're just making it up and you're spooky or whatever, however that looks. So I found that a lot of this was connected to the right hemisphere of the brain. Also the brain that you have in your heart and your gut. So you have 1/10 the number of neurons that you've got in your brain, in your heart and in your gut. And they're actually making some very interesting links at the moment about gut health and gut bacteria and also mental health, which is very exciting. I think the book, when I finished it, was published by Hay House, which I was very delighted over because it's a nice big publisher. But since that book came out, it's very frustrating when you're watching people scientifically prove the ideas that you put into a book as a hunch, and just because somebody has a white lab coat or whatever, and you're like, I've been saying this for years, and with no attention and no great book contracts and sales and stuff. But yeah, so I then have gone very much interested in neuro pathways. I've been doing lots of research into trauma-based ADHD and things like that. I think that all of this stuff and how our brains are changing, and I think we're all a little bit too scared to admit that right now, but we are all speeding up, our brains are changing, and people are all kind of like, oh no, it's neurodiversity. I'm sorry, but you can find me a neurotypical person. Actually, I wouldn't want to meet them. They'd be too boring. So, I'm very interested in what's actually happening to us and why it's happening. And is it to do with processed food? Is it to do with chemicals? Is it to do with all sorts of different things that we're actually eating? So, that's it's all just a very interesting subject to me. So, looking at that still.
I love the topic of intuition. I know there's been various kind of business and personal things that I've kind of, predicted psychically in my past, and then they've just happened, writing the date of my firstborn child, and then, a 20-week scan going, I've seen this date before. And there's me back in my kind of, 5-6 years before, writing my life plan, and there I am having a child born on exactly that date that I'd written down, or believing that I'm going to win a certain competition and be in a certain location because I've photoshopped the whole thing because I kind of felt it. And things like this happen to me.
It's very common. It's very common. And, and it does make you think, am I creating? And this is why I stopped doing future predictions, because I was classed as a psychic. And that's why I went on this big exploration to actually find out what was what, because that was the only word that was available at the time. And this is when we used to have an occult book section before it became Mind, Body, Spirit, before it became Wellbeing. And I like to think
I love the softening of such severe. I went to Canterbury recently, and they've still got the ducking stool that they put the witches on, and you go, we'd all have been on that.
We'd have all have been on that
hundreds of years ago.
All of us neurodiverse people would have been on that. And I think that this is a huge thing, and I think because it was just kind of like written off. And it's funny, there was I think it was Kindred Spirit magazine said that I was one of the thought leaders that actually took that word psychic and kind of like got it flipped on its head. It then became intuitive, but actually you don't have so many people doing the future prediction type stuff now. And a lot of it, I do think was, I was one of, like Simon Sinek, Simon talks about how you are part of a movement. So I definitely was a key player in a part of a movement to get spirituality into the mainstream media. So when I had a radio show on LBC, which again, because of the occult section of the bookshop, had to be called The Psychic Show, we did way, way more information than that. And then now I turn on Virgin Radio and listen to Chris Evans, and I'm like, yeah, you're talking about these subjects because of a revolution of people that were almost stoned to death in the past that actually made a clear way for you to be able to discuss this. And sometimes I'm like, yay! And then other times I'm like, it would just be nice to actually still be doing that work. But because we were part of that movement, we now can't be part of this movement. So it's a frustration and a delight at the same time.
I'm visualizing a chain and some links, because you were part of that original chain link. It's stuck, it's like one of those puzzle things that you can't actually unlock and get to the future link.
And in some ways, would I want to be on the same chain gang? I don't think so. I think I did my time doing that, and a little bit that reinvention was like, well, the next thing to light me up is personal development comedy, because I am usually driven, and you're probably the same, by what annoys me. I'm not necessarily driven by what I love. And one of the things that's annoying me at the moment is the conversation around mental health and that it's your fault and there's something wrong with you. And I can't fight that or have a conversation about that within coaching or counselling or anything like that. But God, I can do it on stage as a comedian. I can challenge as a comedian. I can say there's nothing wrong with you. Society is not built for the way that we really need to be. Soapbox, 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 soapbox. Yes. But I have a comedy soapbox, which means I don't turn into a ranty nutbag. Well, not often anyway.
That's a really good output. Ooh. I'm liking this idea of comedy.
Yeah, because you get to say that it's like the court jester. You don't get your head cut off by the king because you're saying all of these things that nobody else should want to say. And in a way, this is kind of like a pathway that Russell Brand has kind of like adopted too. But he did it the other way around. I'm doing it the opposite way to Russell Brand. So I went as a spiritual teacher, and now I'm a comedian. And there's another guy called Kyle Cease as well that's in America that's done something similar, though, again, he was a comedian. He's gone into the spirituality and he's kind of lost his comedy a bit, in my opinion. Other people might disagree. But so for me, it's kind of like I've done that, and now I'm taking that learning and developing it to people who would never be seen dead on a therapist couch, no matter how comfortable it is, but they are happy in a bar, because guess what? Drinking really helps the stuff that we don't want to deal with. So by bringing me into the room, you're going to have to deal with it now, aren't you?
There's no escaping Becky Walsh.
There isn't. But you can carry on drinking, and you can buy me one while you're at it, and then we'll put the world to rights.
I love it. It feels like we've had a wonderful journey through this episode, actually, and talked about some kind of quite reflective concepts in business and in kind of creativity and tech as well. What are you working on at the moment, Becky, and what's coming? I know you've mentioned a new show you're kind of working on. Douchebag? Tossbag. So douchebag is the American equivalent, and then there's tossbag, so you absolute, one of those. And so one of the things that I do in my training for town and parish councils is I do a thing called civility and respect. So it's really a 4-webinar module about how to deal with challenging people, your own emotional resilience, how to deal with psychopaths and narcissists that are actually very attracted to positions of power. So they can be sometimes attracted to councils, and also, so I'm just saying. But if you want to look at government, you want to argue with me? I don't think you do. So I'm teaching how to spot them at an early point before their career progresses into government. So just don't give them mirrors. Don't give them mirrors.
Don't give them mirrors. Not quite like vampires, but still, I can't see the reflection. Anyway, so part of that with teaching these things about challenging people, and believe me, councils are inundated with challenging people in lots of different ways, just for their mere structure and organisation. I decided to make it funny. And it also means that I don't know if you have ever been to corporate training events. They're quite dull. And lots of people usually sign up for a corporate training event to have an opportunity to nap, I think.
Yes.
So with bringing in comedy also means that I can go into corporate training events, seminars, large kind of like things with lots of people, and I can be funny and deliver a message without it being dry and boring, and then also deliver it into pubs and social environments and theatres. So that's what I'm working on at the moment, is how do I get more into the corporate rather than the public sector, which I'm currently in. So there's that. So with the two shows, which is Burnout and Tossback, I still find Tossback I'm very happy with the title. And there's me with this kind of with a bag kind of flying, because I think that's quite funny, because it's offensive and not offensive. It's quite clever. So there's that. I think it's clever. I would do. So I'm working on that. I also work for 2 town and parish councils as their communications officer, so I do that. I'm also about to make a podcast for Weston-super-Mare to help promote the town. What else am I doing? I'm doing a course in counselling, and I'm doing a PR course as well. So there's quite a lot of different things that I'm doing, because anyone who's a multi-potentialite or has an interdisciplinary mind, they get bored. And so I have to have various amounts of things. So at the moment, I've got what you might class as too much on, but actually, off the back of Sea Monster, it feels like a holiday.
Yes,
So
yes,
fun.
exactly. I hear you. I see you. All of these, lots of different things going on. Anyone that knows me will know that I do lots of different things. But it's just maintaining that energy. And at the kind of beginning, we were talking about using up energy. I train jiu-jitsu now. And I find that, it just gives me more energy rather than less. So I'm kind of building up my capacity for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And this is the weird thing about burnout. Burnout can come through boredom. Through being stuck in the same job, through being utterly fed up, and through a lack of deep conversation. Small talk. So that's why this is good. But I think, so for people like us, if we haven't got enough on our plate, our spinning plates, then that's actually a detriment to our own burnout capacity. So weird.
Agreed.
So,
I know, even though people kind of look at us strangely and go, you're at burnout. It's like, no.
And also people have different size plates. I one of the comments I make in the stand-up show is people who go, oh my God, I'm so busy. And it's like, talk faster. If you were busy, you wouldn't be saying it that slowly. And also when I look at their plate, it's like a tiny plate. It's like a side plate. And what, you've got 4 vol-au-vents? 4 vol-au-vents? That's not busy. It's not really looks like. Look at my platter of stuff. I don't even have a round plate. It's a freaking silver platter of stuff. But God help you if you try and put even the remotest pea on my plate, because I will kill you, because it's really full. So just get your peas and go. But it's that. But it is that thing of suddenly something will happen with my full platter that I'm lording it around like I'm doing silver service waitress, really happy with myself and spinning whilst lots of other plates. But it literally, you just have to be mindful of if the dog suddenly needs taken to the vet. This is not a huge thing, but suddenly it becomes a huge thing. So it's always about kind of like have one of your sticks available for in current things that just might happen if you've got people who you're dependent on. Luckily, it's just the dog in my case, and future Simon Sinek. Have I mentioned this before? Am I really rubbing this in? I need to stop, don't I? It's not funny anymore.
So you're going to go and see him, and not maybe 1-to-1, but you never know. Counting on it, potentially.
I had this thing about Prince pulling me up onto the stage. I don't think that this is going to be but can you imagine if Prince kind of going, oh, you come and dance with me? That's what I always wanted up until the point where he died. I don't think it's going to be the same as Simon Sinek, kind of come on and intellect with me. Come on up, girl.
Girl. Who knows? Come on, your future predictions. Come on, pull all that old stuff out the bag.
You're right. I should have written it 6 years ago. Maybe I did.
Anyway, we will find out. Becky will give us an update.
if I end up sticking something on Instagram, that inevitable selfie, you're going to die. It's really so funny.
I know, and it's going to go, Becky didn't take me.
Becky didn't take me. Oh, gosh.
I'm your backup. I'm your backup. Okay.
You're your backup. Yeah. If my friend can't go, you're the backup. I've got that down. That is going to happen. Yeah, if she can't make it, Yeah, be aware, sudden phone calls.
I'm good at last minute things as well.
Good, excellent. It's amazing. Good.
Okay.
I've got you back. I've got it.
Thank you. Right. How can people get hold of you, Becky? Because I kind of feel like we might have a lot of listeners wanting to reach out to you.
Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be
Simon
lovely.
Sinek.
I'm not too busy for you, don't put it that way. So it's beckywalsh.com. So all the W's, beckywalsh.com. And then off the back of that, you'll find my YouTube channel, my Instagram channel, my Facebook thing, all of that stuff. And a very old podcast I don't play with anymore. But all of that is on the website, so you'll be able to find me that way.
Fantastic. Becky, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love these whirlwind conversations, and yes, wishing you every success with the Western Supermare podcast upcoming, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Great stuff. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have recording it. I look forward to have you listening in again for the next episode, and in the meantime, I'd love you to rate, review and download this episode. Thanks again for listening.